Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm not flirting with the audience, but I think this has been a great audience. And you must have had 2 great days here. And I'm a little bit proud that this is happening in Oslo. And it makes me feel very good being here. So thank you for this invitation. It was an aspect yesterday where we come from. And now I forgot where to press. I'm allergic to these machines. Okay. Malene, this is where I come from. Yes. Yes. And if you don't believe it, you can go there. You will find it like this. And this is in the very, very north of Norway. And I show this picture not out of tourism. It is also an aspect in my work, I think. Or is it okay now? Yes. Yeah? Okay. Because I think it's an aspect important to my work. Also, it has a little bit, maybe sounds a little bit some kind of a sentimentality into this. But I think every human being has something that he is always or she is always carrying with her, and this is the kind of this landscape, the resonance. You say it in Norwegian, klangbunn, like you have it in the instrument. There's something, you have a sound, you have something that follows you through your whole life. And it doesn't have to have anything with geography to do, but it has to do with something that you can listen to from time to time when you need it or when you only kind of feel it. The first mystery of painting that I came to know, I experienced together with my mother. She was painting very nice, very intimate pictures, and we often went into the mountains, and she had a very beautiful box with her paint in, and she had a Nivea box with the white paint in it. And I always thought that she was painting with Nivea, with the cream. So that was my first mystery of painting. But later in my life, I came to realize other mysteries as well. This is actually the day after the beautiful sunshine picture. And I used to live in this house in the middle. And there is some, the next mystery of painting in my life was actually this. And this is at a time before silk screen application. And so this is actually the first biggest painting I ever saw in my life. And I lived next to this. This is fish balls from the north of Norway. A very famous logo. And this is many years ago, Sortland, Norway. But this is still going on. They changed the color into green, but that's okay. Yeah. I went to, I used to study in Oslo, and I used to kind of describe this. I had a very wonderful professor, Ludvig Eikås, and the first semester we prepared his 60th birthday, and the second semester we talked about the party. And I thought maybe this kind of continue like this, so I decided maybe I should try something else. So I went to New York, and the first thing happened, the professor came after me. So, but anyhow, I came to New York, and from New York I kind of found out that I would kind of see if I could give shape to my study myself. So I kind of, this was not out of laziness, but it was out of something that I wanted to kind of find out myself. And coming to Berlin from New York, I kind of have the first touch of something that I could realize, see to be my own paintings. And Marlene, there's a story next to the anecdote, to the picture left. And picture is called From Nowhere. And you spoke about this wonderful story, this work not belonging to you anymore. No? This is a picture that I was showing at my first show in 1984, and it was bought from the National Gallery. And so it is in the collection here. And a few years ago, unexpectedly, I saw this picture hanging in one of those rooms up here. And I came into the room, didn't expect it, and I saw this painting, and I thought, this is a very wonderful painted painting. But I didn't think about myself. Maybe you don't believe it, but it's true. Mari told us she has been thinking about this, or writing this, her wonderful text of poetry yesterday, the whole summer, and I have a kind of having this in my mind the whole summer as well, and kind of pushing it away from me. But I decided to show you a lot of pictures. I hope you're not totally exhausted of information, but I mean, you say stop when it's enough. Yesterday we had, almost every speaker, they were talking about impressions and Cézanne's meaning and for their own observation. And this picture is called Cézanne Takes Farewell, says goodbye. You saw these two other figures standing in this landscape, kind of being a little bit surprised themselves, doing almost nothing or just having some kind of strange behavior. But he is taking a certain activity. So in this sense, this painting could you see as a programmatic painting. And would you like to know what I think about Cézanne as well? Yes? What always has irritated me by Cézanne is that he has a tendency to lean out of balance. Yes. And I can't really understand it, why it's always like that, because it's always going somewhere. But Cézanne leaving opens up for this landscape. These pictures are quite big, like 2 by 2 meters. And leaving this landscape, and I made a programmatic title for Cézanne saying goodbye, as I did for this painting, The Turning Point, which leads me into a landscape, and I still have this correspondency to the landscape, no? from earlier. And so this has been kind of important paintings for me to establish some communication with some kind of something that I could believe in, corresponding to what I would really like to do, because it has always been, the main person in this communication has always been myself. So I show you a few paintings from these years, and you can still see a very close, intimate correspondency to the surface, to this kind of taking a long time to kind of make these very slow paintings become what they might. This is a double portrait in a way. From you can read it like that. Seeing this Munch exhibition yesterday, you can really find you can locate some kind of recognizable Munch areas. And I called it My Father's Land, so it's as a tribute to my father maybe as well. I don't know if he would appreciate it, but I took the opportunity. And this is this is also pictures from the middle 80s up in the beginning of, well, the last 5 years of the 80s, which was a very kind of interesting period in the Nordic painterly society. And we had kind of this mystific kind of geographic area of contemplation. And so this was a kind of very interesting also to see that other painters were kind of touching similar areas in their own works without kind of having this clear correspondency. So I just showed you this kind of works typical for this period, also to kind of give this a picture of this deep need of painting, because that has always been something that I really, really liked. And there was a grand old man, he's dead now, in the Swedish art life, Torsten Andersson. And the worst thing that he knew was to paint. And he kind of, he fought against this. He was painting all his life until he got 82, but he hated to paint. And then once he came and visited me in my studio, and he was walking like this and looking at all these pictures standing there, and then he said, "Olav, goddamn, you like to paint, do you?" Yeah. And in fact, that's what I really like to. I like to paint. And this leads me to this lack of memory paintings. And this is from 1990 to 92. I had the opportunity to paint all these paintings in my studio. And it's not very often that you have like a group of paintings in your studio 2 years without leaving the studio. And that was kind of extraordinary. And now I come to something. This is the artist in the studio. And just to present the artist, of course, but also to kind of give this image of these paintings. Because they are like 275 by 255. And Gavin, this is from the exhibition you missed. I always kind of my reflection on painting is always in painting. You always find it in the painting. But since I was invited to this conference, I kind of felt I had to write something, and I never did it before. And I kind of, so this is, I read a few fragments that was what I immediately wrote down when I was invited. And the first little fragment says, "I hate theories about painting. They have a tendency to be prescriptive. They take away something important from painting, to observe and take care about the unexpected. But to think through painting means to accept the exclusive separation of normal understanding from painting. Painting is an activity, and so is thinking." So this is the first fragment. So I continue with the lack of memory paintings. This is, so I just show you a few of these paintings. What actually happened with these lack of memory paintings, which was also important, because I was kind of analyzing a little bit what I have done before, and I realized that I had kind of made pictures, all these kind of slow paintings. I realized I'd kind of made pictures in many layers, say 8, 9, and if I separated them, maybe I could have like 8 complete paintings. So this is also the value of experience. So I got a few years older, and I could observe my activity in a different way. And also from doing a deep, very important exercise of drawing. The most important thing you can do is to make drawings. And suddenly I had a new intimate way, and there is also this critical moment that you overdo something, and this was a very interesting experiment to leave the painting when it could breathe enough itself. So in a way, these paintings came also to make a clearness into this field of understanding, and but also the new dimension for me was also to be able to use different tools to work in other conditions to to leave a lot of questions out of the studio. That was very good. So all these paintings were all in the same size. They are for this exhibition, I painted 43 paintings of them, and from this group of paintings, they also they did a selection for the documenta, and we had a wonderful show here in Oslo in Kunstnernes Hus, where we could show all the 43 lack of memory paintings. There is one 44th lack of memory painting, but became another destiny. I will come back to that later. I'm putting some kind of chronology into this now, and I must admit I painted a very great lot of paintings, so I made an elegant selection for you. It has been important for me just to let things. I'm not a hunter. I just wait for it to come, and I have the patience also to have it like this. And it can only be a change of a tool. You have another brush in your hand, or have something unexpected other tool. You cannot have a strategy in this. You cannot make a strategy of how things can come to be. This is a line, says, since we all came from the same place. I wrote down this and fell so much in love with this sentence, but I didn't have the picture for it. And then I had painted like this. I prepared 3 canvases with a very with 3 different layers of color wet on each other. So I didn't have much time I had to find out what to do with it. And suddenly I had this picture coming to it, I don't know where this kind of picture belongs to, but it, in a way, I felt was very human reaction on this wonderful sentence. With an elegant knife that the bookbinders used. You know, this very flat, wonderful knife. I mean, the knife was the reason why... Yeah. Leading me to this. Kind of the same reflection on this, suddenly having these small boards of wood in the hand, and having a tendency to romanticism from time to time, being a romantic person. And suddenly I was having this impression of these Bronte sisters, and I wanted to make a homage to the Bronte sisters, mainly because of this stupid brother they had that got so much attention. So I call it the love letter headings for Bronte sisters. It's a group of 110 paintings, always leaving space to write beautiful things for the Bronte sisters. Well, they had to take care of this stupid brother all the time because everybody thought he was very talented and so, which was not true. Well, everybody forgot him as well. When I do my work, I kind of like to give myself some kind of limitation. I like to kind of challenge myself in a little way and kind of not always to be such a clever boy, but kind of have a challenge in the limitation of technique. I like to kind of make movements that I cannot go back in the process. I paint like the black and then I put as a layer on the top and then the black spots are dripped on top of that again. And with this logic, I cannot go back in the process. I cannot, which I think is also a kind of something that I would very much like to say, that I don't want to be the one to correct myself. And this, of course, I cannot do all the time. But mostly, I try to not to correct myself. And that means I give myself the opportunities to kind of also to limit, because I mean there can also be this thing that you are getting so clever. I don't find the right word for it. You get so man blir så kvalifisert, man blir så dyktig, va? Skrekkelig, skilled, ja. And to prevent this kind of latitude, I invent these processes that you can only go forward into. And maybe I could read a little bit more here. In a way, I continue my fragment reading. In a way, one might say that painting is materializing thoughts, keeping in mind that thoughts can be highly emotional. This is probably why Kandinsky and other abstract painters were so fascinated by what Annie Besant claimed, that she actually could see thoughts, and that these thoughts had distinct forms and colors. If we look closer into what these thoughts were about, there were actually all kinds of emotions: pure affection, jealousy, fear. The more complex thought form, the more complicated emotion. Why did I mention Kandinsky? I don't like Kandinsky. I dislike the dogma of defining the option. The problematic with Kandinsky and his brothers is that they were introducing a new form of limitation. Of course, I understand this now, but they didn't. That's why they soon became defenders like most other dogmatic addicts. This is very arrogant, I know, but I was very honest in the moment I wrote it. So, excuse me, Kandinsky. But I think this is also something that I like to have. I like to have this little arrogancy, because I like to have this happening now in me, taking place with myself, very present in this. Because I think this is so very close to the life I live, to what I mean, I don't do anything else, huh? All the time. But also paintings in a leading into another period of observation, which is kind of moving from something, but also into something. but also having something in common with the other paintings that maybe look different, but have the same resonance. Yes, it has also to do with that kind of when you, because there is not a matter of making decisions. As I said, you cannot kind of make strategies to kind of arrange this destiny. So leading me to this, and kind of this biography, so kind of paintings that was actually done in the period where I had my first kind of retrospective exhibition, and so there is also kind of a comment to this, and kind of also finding a new method, having this kind of rhythmical, very stable action going on like this all the time, and also kind of suddenly occurs something that you wouldn't maybe expect, but it is a correspondency back to this kind of landscape again that is kind of, always kind of occurring. And since these pictures have this automatically way of doing, I have been doing over the years, like every 5 years, I've been doing another 5 paintings of these, just to kind of see how the diagram how it's working. This is one from 2012, I think. Yes. So and I think now I have like 35 of these paintings. They're all 220 by 2 meters. I'd like to have some kind of consequence in the size of the paintings. I always have some kind of size that you can find all the way through the beginning, like 50 by 70. If you do it like that, you have a kind of something that happens by this. There is a consequence, and if you have 1, it's maybe boring. If you have 2, it's and if you have 3 and if you have 4, it becomes interesting. It could almost be a strategy, but it is not. So maybe I could read a fragment again. I am a lucky painter without a subject. I am a happy painter without any message. Is that really true? No, it's not true. The painting itself is the consequence of sensibilities, the consequence of an experience cultivated from other readable forms of understanding. The dreamlike statement about nothing except what happened during this presence. It is like listening to music without any language in mind. The most trustworthy moments come when consciousness gives way to the unconsciousness, to the unconscious. When the thought doesn't rule the process, but only the devotion accumulated by deep concentration, by openness, and the unknowing. There is nothing understandable, interfering, or disturbing. Yes, this was fragment 4. And this is quite big pictures again, and often in this, except from these biography paintings, when these paintings are coming to an end, I never repeat them. But once I had a very irritating collector, and he wanted so much because he was too late. Huh? So he wanted me very, very, very much to paint a painting like this for him. And I said, I do it or I will never get rid of him. So I had to kind of, make a major decision. So, and I said, okay, You leave my studio, I paint you a painting. And that came to be the Palindrome Painting. The Palindrome Painting is a group of painting that I did for the festival in Bergen, which is a major music festival, but also in Norwegian dimension, the most important exhibition for artists. So this is actually a very biographical painting, and I was kind of, in short version, not readable for him, but for me, my irritation, my anger. So this is kind of, but I was so stimulated by this anger, so I decided to kind of, because suddenly I had this very emotional approach to painting, and I had been working in a very, very disciplined way, trying to control myself, and I suddenly had this very, very great joy of painting, and then I kind of use different elements of my biography to make this group of paintings that became to be the Palindrome. And since the palindrome is the word you can read both directions, it was a helpful information for people that would try to understand what it says. So, but then again, this painter's joy that the painters, I think, needs, because it's for me it's also a very, very close relationship to this material, the paint itself. Well, the body, huh? Yeah. It's quite interesting. This group of paintings are going to be shown in Paul Klee Centrum next year with an exhibition with Paul Klee, not Kandinsky, but Paul Klee, and with Twombly and Bryce Marden and Jonathan Lasker. And this is not name dropping, it's just because when I got this invitation, I wrote back and then and I said, when I read all these participators in the exhibition, my name is really extraordinary. If this personal participation and this, well, it's a little bit easy to call it only joy, but this, I mean, if this doesn't mean anything to me, I cannot expect anybody else to kind of, well, take part in it. Many times the paintings might be big, but they actually can be very small as well. It doesn't matter. It is only well, if you have the identity under control, the dimension doesn't matter. So, and this protagonist painting, I change methods. I don't change methods out of strategy reasons, but I changed the methods out of something that is kind of moving me into something. Could be, as I mentioned, to suddenly have another tool in my hand and things and so on. And since I cannot kind of ask questions because I don't want to give any answers to this process, I can only kind of realize these things by doing them. And but there is also something else that I trust is happening, and what I trust is the consequence in this long kind of participation, and that is if I change the method, if I change the image of the painting, there is always something that I cannot change, and that is my own participation. And so, and then I have to kind of investigate it. I have to kind of make this wide scale of paintings to kind of include them in these other consequences that I find in the other paintings. And we are still having this resonance from from this listening to what you feel about it. And these paintings are quite big. They are 4 meters and 10 by 380. So you could maybe think this is the perfect paintings to have 10 assistants to do, because you can only give them a group of numbers and they will paint it. But actually, for me, that would be unthinkable, because first of all, this kind of personal participation, and I want to do it myself, and also because there is also in this a limitation that I put on myself. This is also a painting that I cannot go back to. I give myself the opportunity only to take the paint in one direction, just once, and then I have to leave it. And that's why these paintings are absolutely not perfect. You have a lot of human marks on the paintings, and I think that's quite important for especially these ones. And all these paintings that I've been showing now that look so very organized, they are quite improvised. They are much more improvised that you could think of. So it's but the big ones, they are like 350. So they are quite big paintings. To the latest group of paintings that I've been working on the last year, and I worked with these paintings parallel to the other ones. And when I had them all in my studio standing, and I had visitors that didn't know me very well, they were a little bit confused because they asked me how many people are working here. And but I don't have any problems with moving from this to this. My fifth fragment, and then I have another fragment. Then I'm very close to. You learn to paint by doing it, just as you think by doing it. Through the practice of painting, new paintings emerge, paintings that claim for an existence of their own. And then I say, I don't paint all the time, but I prefer having the opportunity in doing so. The waiting time is meaningful and contains careless diversions. The moment I like the most is to start a painting, the first unpredictable 20 seconds. I have found my perfect studio. It is 2 houses with a garden between them. I paint in both of them, but different paintings. In the first house, I have small, intimate, slow paintings. In the other house, I have the ambitious, large paintings. If I don't feel ambitious, for the moment, I go back to the first house. If I would have another obsession apart from painting, it would be language. There is a connection between poetry and painting. As in poetry, in painting, anything can be connected to anything. It's a non-linear way of thinking and observing. That is my fifth fragment. And I have realized that and since I am a human person, and I'm living in a society with other people, I think the best I can do for other people is to paint. Because this is what I can do the best. This is absolutely. Yeah. I can cook a little bit, but no. But I'm a much better painter. In this very nice introduction of my person, you mentioned this exhibition in Henny Onsdag Center. And since this was supposed to be an exhibition of all my paperworks, I had to kind of find a way how to kind of make it possible to see so many paperworks in frames from 1979 until now. And when I was supposed to do this exhibition, I decided I have to kind of do something that can bring organization into this complexity of paperworks, but also to bring something nice into the architecture, something different into the architecture. And since this is a conference of painting, this is the largest painting I ever did. So I kind of made all these chapters for preparing the show like this, and before looks similar to the wonderful wall drawing in your museum, huh? And before we started to hang, we had this fantastic, enormous painting around us, and we enjoyed it for a few hours. But since we have announced it as a paperwork exhibition, we had to do some hanging. Okay, we're coming to the epilogue. Yes, 2 minutes. Okay, I can manage that. Well, this is actually the second studio for the ambitious paintings. And I told you this little story about the 44th lack of memory painting that never came to be one. Huh? And all these years I have been painting, and since I love paint so very much, I cannot throw anything away. So what happened is that this painting that never became a lack of memory painting became the painting that is kind of catching all the paint that I couldn't throw away. So everything landed on this painting, and I bring it into a detail here. So, and it's a big fantasy, delirious homage to paint itself. This brings me to my last fragment. After all, what is the most important is to keep your attention, your sensitivity, and you yourself alive. I never think, I always think. I hate theory about painting, but it's very interesting. Thank you.